Hello, viewers of the Spell, and we're doing another What If. I am still trying to figure out transition between this and doing more readings of online short stories. If you know a place where I can find them, that'd actually be great, or if you have any suggestions yourself. It's a little tricky trying to find them in transition. But without further ado, we're going to be doing this What If. What if Midoriya was a Dungeons & Dragons sorcerer? Now, I do plan on this being a series, and I am hoping to add some extra production value, along with adding a few extra characters that I hope to have true depth. And, without further ado, let's begin this video. We see a man experimenting in his tower. Zareth, the half-elf sorcerer and wizard, experimenting on ancient relics involving dimensional travel. According to the text, you could use this to travel to worlds. Many people believe this is how humans became so populous in the multiverse. The man had green hair and was experimenting late into the night when he had found something, a way to travel. It was actually rather simple. You set up and you connected one point to the other through the ethereal plane. It was rather simple and worked very similar to other teleportation gates. The only difference is you had to combine it with other spells, like plane shift, to create a stable gate. He knew this wasn't quite how the ancients did it, but none of them were left to tell him. As he set up the portal, linked his body to it, and cast plane shift. He was looking for a unique world, a world that would be a rather big discovery. As he cast his mind into the vastness of the universe, he found something. A world seemingly devoid of the divine touch. As he went there, as his body would appear, he would stretch. Finding that wizard spells didn't work, he chuckled. Of course they didn't. They relied on the weave. And this world had no weave, since Mishra had seemingly not visited this world. He had to admit, he felt cocky. He had discovered a world not even the gods had touched. And luckily for him, his sorcerous nature allowed him to use magic, since instead of the weave, he could just draw on something more primordial. But he would have to walk around and try to find the materials to build a gate on this side. He had a bag of coins and didn't speak the language. After a while, it was rather taxing, until he met a young woman. She had dark green hair, compared to his light green. He smiled, and she handed him a burger that he ate happily. And that was the first meeting of the two. Zareth would take the name Hisashi, and the woman would be Inko Midoriya. He would continue his research in this strange world as they would eventually marry. He had built a gate back to Faerun, his home plane. Inko, who at this point had a baby Izuku, didn't want to move to Faerun. And frankly, Hisashi didn't necessarily either. He was fascinated with quirks, the power of this world, but was also disappointed. Without divine magic, healing was ironically less advanced, despite Faerun being close to what humans in this world would call the Renaissance period. Since in Faerun, all one had to do to get healing was to go to a priest for anything serious, and it would be healed. Lost a limb? If you got to a priest within time, they would cast Regenerate, and you would get a new limb. Even the human disease of cancer was trivial when you had magic that could either remove the growth or just simply kill it outright. Hisashi also didn't want to give up all of his prestige. He was from a sorceress family, and had taken the path to higher knowledge to extend his magical knowledge. He had even been an adventurer for many years. He decided his goal would be connecting this world to Faerun, introducing the wonders of magic. And to that goal, he would bring simple gold coins to the world people would call Earth and would sell them. This would accumulate a decent amount of wealth he would use to travel. He had found similarities between Earth and Faerun and decided to investigate it. After all, investigating on both sides would hopefully give him a method to create a permanent and stable connection. This would result in Midoriya growing up without his father, for the most part. When Midoriya was 4, he would be told he was quirkless. He would begin getting picked on, as Hisashi would come to visit. He would spend a few months, as Inko would tell him. Hisashi would look at her and say, "Well, it's not surprising. Technically, I don't have a quirk," as he actually laughed. Inko thought to slap him for a second, as Hisashi said, Midoriya should be fine. I'll teach him magic. There's no doubt in my mind he has the sorcerer's blood in him." As Hisashi would walk up to Midoriya, who was watching All Might's video, as Midoriya would be crying, as Hisashi would say, "So, how are you doing?" Midoriya would sniffle and say, "I was told I was quirkless, and how am I going to become a hero if I'm quirkless?" Hisashi would smile devilishly, and he said, "Do you want me to teach you, I guess you would call it the quirk of my family?" Midoriya would look up and say, "You need be born with a quirk, everyone knows that." Hisashi would say, "Well, my family's quirk is rather unique. Just ignore that whole bone joint nonsense. I have actually 2 joints in my pinky toe, and I can do things that many quirks can't." As Hisashi would cast dancing lights, Midoriya would look around and say, "I thought your quirk allowed you to breathe fire." Hisashi would say, "My quirk isn't fire breathing, it's something more complicated. I guess." Midoriya would look at him and say, Your quirk doesn't have a name?" As Hisashi would say, "I guess I never gave it one. You would probably call it Sorceress Spark, or maybe just Magic, or, as I'll probably call it for you, the Gift of Magic." Midoriya would look at him and say, "Magic's in fairy tales, it's not real." Hisashi would laugh. "Oh, my sweet summer child. I shall teach you true magic. Magic that will make any want-to-be hero jealous." As Hisashi would send word to most of his contacts, saying he would spend 6 months with his family, as he would begin teaching Midoriya the basics of magic, leave him books on how to use sorceress magic, and also silently decide he really needed to tell his family that he actually was already married and had a son. He winced at the fact that his mother would not be thrilled at the fact that he was already married and never told her. As Midoriya would get older, Hisashi would regularly make check-ins, teaching him more magic. Midoriya's friendship with Bakugo wouldn't be as bad. Bakugo wouldn't actively taunt him, particularly after Midoriya cast Create Water and soaked Bakugo. Bakugo then was zapped with a shocking grasp. As Bakugo, after that day, when they were 10, would stop calling Midoriya Deku. Instead, Bakugo would call Midoriya Sorcerer. Midoriya would come to his dad and say, "Am I a sorcerer?" And to that, Hisashi would just say, "Well, yeah." Midoriya would shrug and say, "That's what Scotchon's calling me now." As Hisashi would just say, "Okay?" With Hisashi completely missing the fact that it meant to be insulting, since for his entire life he had been called sorcerer, and it was not considered a offensive statement. Inko would worry about her child, but between the magic training and Hisashi being more in their lives, things would go smoothly. Midoriya had aspirations to be a hero, and Hisashi would start putting the finishing touches on his work. We flash to roughly a year before Midoriya would attempt to take the UA entrance exams. He would come home and see his father talking with his mom. He would walk in, and Hisashi would say, "Midoriya, I have something to tell you." Midoriya would walk forward and say, "My research is going to be done soon, and I'll be leaving for possibly a year." Midoriya would nod, a little sad that his dad wouldn't be there for when he took the UA entrance exams. "I asked a good friend of mine, Ragnar, to help you train." As Midoriya would look, Ragnar was a man easily over 6 feet tall, raven black hair, and blue eyes. Ragnar would put out his hand to shake, and Midoriya would shake it. Midoriya would be shocked on how much force Ragnar put into the shake, as Ragnar would smile. "Nice to meet you, kid. Your father's told me many things about you, including you want to be a hero." Midoriya would nod. "I guess you could say me and your dad had many adventures." As Hisashi would nod and say, "Midoriya, once I finish my research, there's going to be something I'm going to want to tell you." Midoriya would say, "Why can't you tell me now?" Hisashi would laugh and say, "I don't think you'll believe me. You could say it's otherworldly, and could possibly change the world." And that's where we're going to leave it. This is actually more of a part 0 than I was originally thinking it was going to be, but we got most of the setup done. So, if you like this concept, please like, share, and subscribe. It does help the channel, especially channels like me, who, frankly, are easily smothered by the YouTube algorithm. And this will be Spellree. Signing off. Hope you have a good day.